Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bricks and Bleachers podcast. All things Chicago Cubs in under 10 minutes. Cubs are currently in fourth place in the National League Central. This weekend, they pulled off something they've never done before in franchise history. We'll talk about that, offer up a recap of the weekend series with Pittsburgh. We'll look ahead, and so much more. Cubs are 7-9 entering Tuesday's action, 2.5 games back of the National League Central lead between St. Louis and Milwaukee. Cubs coming off a 7-game homestand where they went just 2-5. This weekend, a 4-game series with Pittsburgh at Wrigley Field. Cubs dropped 3 of 4. All 3 of those losses, the Pirates scored 4 runs in each of those games. Cubs' lone win of the series came on Saturday, a 21-0 blowout. 2022 is the 147th season of the franchise, and Saturday's game is the largest margin in a shutout victory in the history of the franchise. How about that? Seiya Suzuki, Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ, and Alfonso Rivas had 3 hits apiece on Saturday. Nico Horner added 4 hits. First time since April 2005 of 5 Cubs players with 3 or more hits in one game. Seiya Suzuki doing it as a rookie. 3 hits, 3 runs, 1 run batted in, plus a stolen base. That's the best stat line by a Cubs rookie in 40 years. 40 years to the day, April 23rd, 1982, and Ryne Sandberg. I think towards the end of April every season on this show, I caution about getting too high or too low about any in-season trend due to a small sample size. Here we are almost 3 weeks into this season, and I'm going to say it again. Let's not get too excited or shook up about anything, but still, let's take a look at some highs and lows of the year so far. First, the debut of Seiya Suzuki. After a decade playing in Japan, he's not having many issues adjusting to Major League Baseball. He battles hard in pretty much every at-bat. He leads the majors at OPS. He's among the leaders in batting average. He's really fun to watch. And he's already been named Player of the Week once for the week ending April 17. A great Cubs signing this spring. On the flip side, the signing of Marcus Stroman. After a solid debut against Milwaukee on April 10, he's struggled the last 2 times out in Colorado and with Tampa at Wrigley Field. Didn't make it out of the 5th inning in either of those 2 contests. His ERA right now just under 9, but that's one of those early stat lines that will not hold up over the course of a year. I still say he finishes with 13 or 14 wins and a ton of strikeouts. He will be fun to watch, and he's going to be awesome by the time we get deeper into this year. Another high note, Keegan Thompson, aside from a hit batter that led to a benches-clearing brawl early in the season, he's been pretty solid. 13 2/3 innings, has yet to give up an earned run, 14 strikeouts, 4 walks, some nice long-inning relief appearances, and much needed too, including one on Friday that kept the Cubs in the game, but the offense just didn't come around and offer him much support. Another low, Wilson Contreras. Specifically, Wilson Contreras at the plate with runners on base. He's hitting just 160 in those situations. 7 strikeouts as well, including pretty key strikeout in the 9th inning of Sunday's game with Pittsburgh. Contreras remains unsigned beyond this season. I'm confident he will get locked in at the plate at some point this year. I don't know if the team will lock him into another deal. On the bright side, Cubs offense has gone from worst to first. Now, this is in a small sample, but the Cubs were the worst team batting average after 9 games last year. They've jumped up to first place in team batting average after 9 games this year. That from a few days ago. They are still tops in the majors after 16 games. As mentioned, Cubs are 7-9, 4th place in the National League Central. Let's take a look at how the division shapes up right now. The Cardinals and Brewers are in a statistical tie atop the Central. Milwaukee 10-7, St. Louis 9-6. Cards with a tough loss on Monday night. Had a 2-0 lead at home with the Mets after 8 innings. Then they gave up 5 runs in the 9th, 5-2 the final. Cubs have yet to play St. Louis, but they have won 2 of 3 against Milwaukee. Pittsburgh in 3rd in the division at 8-8. Cubs have played the Pirates 7 times already this year. Aside from Saturday's 21-0 win, Cubs have put up just 12 runs combined in the other 6 games. Reds are in the basement of the division with a 3-13 record. It didn't start off that bad. They started 2-2, then they dropped 11 in a row. before breaking that skid on Sunday with a 4-1 win over St. Louis. Our This and That segment, news and notes from around Major League Baseball. Pace of play, a hot topic in recent years. Last week, the Yankees beat the Tigers 4-2 on Tuesday night, a 9-inning game that lasted 3 hours and 59 minutes. Second longest 4-2 9-inning game in history, behind only a Yankees-Red Sox game in 2011. Does anyone like the work of umpire Angel Hernandez? No, I don't think so. Kyle Schwarber, the latest to highlight the ump's deficiencies. This was a late-game strikeout call, and by all indications, the pitch appeared to be off the plate. Not exactly close, but it still was a called strike three. Schwarber went off. One of the more epic arguments that we've seen in recent memory. Miguel Cabrera joined an elusive club over the weekend. He's 39, picked up his 3,000th career hit on Saturday. The 33rd player in Major League Baseball history with 3,000 hits, and only the 7th with 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. You recall the Cubs' fire sale that took place last July. It began when the team shipped Jock Peterson to Atlanta. This year, he's with San Fran, and he belted his 6th home run of the year Monday night. 6 home runs in, I believe, just 14 games. That's pretty impressive. Staying in the National League West, 4 teams in that division already have 10 wins apiece. Arizona Diamondbacks, only team out west, not in double digits with wins. All right, back to the Cubs and a look ahead at what is likely to be a pretty difficult time of the 2022 schedule. Next 2 weeks, we'll see some tough matchups. Beginning Tuesday night in Atlanta, it's a 3-game series, and then the Cubs travel to Milwaukee for a 3-game weekend series. They've got Monday and Thursday off next week with a pair of games at home with the White Sox sandwiched in between those off dates, followed by 3 at home with the Dodgers, and then 3 in San Diego. Silver lining is this difficult stretch is followed by what could be perceived as an easier 2-week stretch of this schedule with Arizona, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. Alec Mills is inching closer to returning to the Cubs rotation. He's got 1 rehab start under his belt at AAA Iowa. He's expected to make 1 more start with Iowa. Could be called up after that. Wade Miley also working his way back. He threw a bullpen session over the weekend, I believe on Saturday. Then live batting practice is planned for this week with a rehab assignment to follow. A couple of trades worth mentioning. Both last week, Cubs sent Jesse Chavez to Atlanta in exchange for Sean Newcomb. Now, the Cubs have had a ton of right-handed arms in the bullpen. Newcomb offers a rare left-handed option for manager David Ross. And the Braves had designated Newcomb for assignment when the Cubs chose to pick him up. Next day, it was kind of like the process was in reverse. The Cubs designated Corey Abbott for assignment. Giants picked him up in exchange for cash. Tuesday night, it is the Cubs and Brewers kicking off a series in Atlanta. The defending World Series champs are 7-10, third place in the National League East. Marcus Stroman and Max Fried, the pitching matchup Tuesday night. I think that's going to be fun to watch. Wednesday, we'll see Mark Leiter Jr. and Charlie Morton facing off, followed by a Thursday series finale with Drew Smyly and Kyle Wright. Smyly with a nice April so far for the Cubs. A nice surprise, while Wright has recorded 2 6-inning shutouts in 3 starts so far for the Braves. All games in Atlanta starting at 7:20 Eastern on Marquee Sports Network. And that's going to pretty much do it for this episode of the Bricks and Bleachers podcast. I'll say quickly that we've seen a different offensive approach for the Cubs so far this year, and I like it. Less reliance on the home run ball, more contact, more doubles, especially. I think the Cubs are second right now in doubles across Major League Baseball. Not necessarily translating to more wins than we saw at this point last year, but I think it will eventually pay off. I like it. Pitching is a little more suspect. I'm not overly concerned just yet, but if things don't solidify by, let's say, late June, that's a different story. All things Chicago Cubs in under 10 minutes. It is the Bricks and Bleachers podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, you will find the Bricks and Bleachers podcast.